I don't think a single person on this planet could dispute the importance of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. It almost single-handedly saved the video game industry in the West due to it being flooded with gobs of poor quality software on the Atari 2600 and its ilk. Looking back at news reports from the time would have you convinced that it was over for video games. The fad had passed. But then came a little game called Donkey Kong, an obvious riff on King Kong. You, the player, took on the role of the unnamed Jumpman in an effort to save the girl from the giant ape. It was a simple game. Each stage took place on a single screen and tasked players with navigating obstacles in an effort to reach the top and save the girl. Simple, but fun. Jumpman would make a few minor appearances in other games, but it wouldn't be too long before he returned with his brother in tow, and a proper name, the Mario Brothers. The Mario Brothers arcade game brought the duo from the Metropolis construction sites to the sewers in order to fend off baddies. This was, again, a fairly simple game with a heavy focus on competitive multiplayer. It wouldn't be until 1985 when Nintendo reintroduced the characters in their own game, Super Mario Bros. Where the Mario Bros. Arcade game was largely a spin-off of Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros. Was altogether unique. In fact, it only retains a few baddies and the jumping mechanic from prior entries. New to this iteration was the side-scrolling nature of its levels. Yep, that was a pretty novel thing at the time. Activision and a few others attempted this type of game prior to Super Mario Bros., but Nintendo perfected it and set the gaming world on fire as a result. The original Super Mario Bros. Was superb in many ways. I probably don't need to go into the reasons why, but just to be thorough, Super Mario Bros. Tasks players with running from left to right in order to reach the end of the level. Along the way, they will encounter a variety of bad guys, power-ups, and secrets. Most notable are the mushroom-like Goombas and the turtle-like Koopas. The game was also popular due to the power-ups it offered to players. The mushroom was simple in that it simply gave Mario an extra hit point, but the real fun came in the form of the Fire Flower and Star power-ups. The Fire Flower would allow players to throw bouncing fireballs at their foes, so long as they didn't take a hit. The Star, conversely, was the ultimate power-up, as it temporarily made Mario invincible. Lastly, the game featured a healthy amount of levels and level variety for the time. Aside from the opening area, level 1-1, you'd also explore underground caves, bodies of water, and castles. It was a meaty game for its day, and single-handedly set the stage for things to come. Now, this is the part of the video where I'd expect a content creator to start speeding through Mario's many triumphs. I mean, it's hard to deny the cultural impact of Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, or Super Mario 64, but this has never really sat well with me. As a kid growing up during Mario's meteoric rise to stardom, I was stoked for one release perhaps more than any other, Super Mario Bros. 2. The common narrative surrounding Super Mario Bros. 2 is that it wasn't originally a Mario game at all. In Japan, it was known as Doki Doki Panic and was converted into a Mario game in the West due to the Japanese Mario 2 being quote-unquote too hard. But I'm just going to brush that under the rug. That story has been told to death and ignores much of the significance Super Mario Bros. 2 brings to the table. Before we dive into this game, I just want you to know that I will be discussing the Japanese Mario 2 later in the video, so if you want to see more on that, stick around. Super Mario Bros. 2 was something I was wildly excited for. I did not own an NES at the time and was only able to play any Mario game when visiting my cousins. But that didn't mean I didn't want the console, quite the opposite. I asked for one at every birthday and Christmas for literal years, to no avail. But one day, I had a stroke of luck. My sister and I had gone to my dad's place for the weekend, and when we showed up, to my surprise, he had rented the NES console and a handful of games, including Super Mario Bros. 2. And I played the hell out of it. Thinking back on it though, I kind of feel bad for my sister. Perhaps she'd be more of a gamer today if I had let her play it some. Anyway, my first impressions were extremely positive. The game starts off by letting you select a character. This was pure insanity to my young gamer brain. You mean I can play as Princess Toadstool? And she can fly? My mind was blown, truly. After you start, the game immediately drops you out of this door in the sky, and you fall into the first level. Naturally, the first thing I do is jump on the first bad guy I see. And what is this? I'm standing on him? My jump doesn't take him out? What kind of craziness is going on here? I eventually realized I could pick up my enemies and throw them into each other. This was such a curveball. I did not expect any of this, but I didn't hate it. I continued on before realizing I could pick up other things too, namely plants and POW boxes. Naturally, this made me curious about any and all secrets this new mechanic might be hiding, and this curiosity led me to another discovery: magic potions. So I pulled the potion from the ground, as you do, and when I threw it down, a door appeared. Entering the door shocked me further. I could collect a classic mushroom and coins, and that music is the theme from the original Mario game. I was in awe. Little did I know, the game wasn't done blowing my stupid little mind. Continuing on, I'd find doors to enter, vines to climb, and a whole slew of new baddies. I had no knowledge of the Doki Doki Panic origins of this game, so I decided then and there that Nintendo were utter geniuses. For the first time in Mario history, Nintendo had gave me an open and diverse world to explore, with new baddies, power-ups, and secrets. This wasn't a retread of the first game, and it was amazing. Sweetening the pot further was the fact that these new bits weren't necessarily better or worse than what was offered in the original, just different. Sure, I didn't have the Fire Flower anymore, but I could throw dozens of projectiles anyway. And sure, the mushroom no longer made Mario big, well, it sort of does that, but it still provided an extra hit point, and that hit point could be replenished throughout the stage. It was persistent. The enemies too were interesting in a great many ways. The Shy Guys have since become a Mario staple, and the various bird and bug-like creatures have wormed their way into the franchise too. And almost none of these served as a replacement to those found in the first game. They were simply different. Boss fights saw a huge bump in quality as well. Let's be honest with ourselves. Bowser, aka King Koopa in the original game, was kind of lame. But here you get Birdo as the standard boss character. And look, I know Birdo doesn't have the same presence of Bowser, but mechanically, these bouts are far more interesting since they fully utilize the game's throwing mechanics. Throw in the fact that Birdo becomes more aggressive as the game goes on, and you can see how this character may have influenced the mini-bosses found in Super Mario Bros. 3. But new to this game were the proper boss characters, namely Mouser, Triclide, Fry Guy, Claw Grip, and Wart. Mouser would throw bombs at you and it was your job to throw them back before they explode. Triclide, three-headed snake, took a different approach by spamming fireballs at you, forcing you to barricade or otherwise avoid his attacks, while also attempting to throw projectiles at him. Fry Guy changes things up further. Since he is a living ball of fire, jumping on him is not an option, so your only option is to avoid him and throw a projectile his way whenever possible. To add a further twist to this battle, Fry Guy will eventually break down into several smaller Fry Guys and hop around on the screen in an effort to take you out. Claw Grip is perhaps the least memorable, but I'm not entirely sure why. The fight with this crab is actually pretty darn interesting. Instead of simply picking up blocks and tossing them at the crustacean, He actually takes the offensive and throws rocks at you, the one and only time rocks are a projectile in this game. Making matters more interesting is that these rocks bounce around, requiring careful timing on your part. Then there is the big bad, Wart. This toad is somewhat iconic in the same way that Wario is. He's kinda gross. He's a very fat toad and has a strong distaste of vegetables, the same vegetables you've been pulling from the ground throughout the game. Okay, so bear with me here. This fight is actually very cool, because he spews these apparently poisonous burp bubbles, while you attempt to nab a delectable vegetable from his vegetable generating machine. Once you have one, it's up to you to time your throw just right, as simply hitting him with the food has no real effect. Now, I know that sounds pretty ridiculous, but I do find it a bit silly and hilarious that this dude just hangs out in a room where this machine is spewing the very food he seems to despise. Bad guy logic at its finest. I really love these boss fights. Even compared to the mighty Super Mario Bros. 3, these are top tier. They take the core mechanics of the game and expand upon them in a variety of fun and interesting ways, so the next time a Mario game throws a boss fight at you that makes you sit up and take notice, you can thank Mario 2. Even if you set these things aside, it would be impossible to talk about Mario Bros. 2 without discussing its more vertical nature. Every stage now has multiple levels to navigate, sometimes optionally. And like before, every stage holds a wealth of secrets to discover. The game even throws in the occasional vertical segment which forces you to navigate upward or downward, usually both, to reach the goal. This combines expertly with the locked doors that require a key to open. In a series first, you'll now find single-use keys from time to time. After you pick one up, you have a few things to contend with. First, you won't be able to pick up anything else while holding a key. There is no inventory system here. Second, and more interestingly, the keys are guarded by these flying mask enemies. As long as you are holding the key, they are coming for you. Contending with these foes can be nerve-wracking due to the swift nature of their movements. If you're familiar with the Angry Sun from Super Mario Bros. 3, you know what to expect with these guys. In addition to all of this is the fact that you'll occasionally have to dig through sand while avoiding enemies. Heck, sometimes you'll have to do this while holding a key and dealing with the mask enemy as well. It can be a serious pain in the backside. And lastly, the game has some truly terrific graphics and sound. You've been looking at the visual makeup of the game for the last several minutes, and I think the visual quality speaks for itself. The same can be said for the music in a lot of ways. The tunes themselves aren't necessarily as iconic as those from the first game, but you'd be hard-pressed to not find a lot of these to be super enjoyable. Now, this is not a perfect game, obviously. The first issue you'll come across is undoubtedly going to be the slightly floaty controls. You just don't feel as in control here as you did in the first game. This issue can be either mitigated or exacerbated depending on the character you choose to play as. I didn't mention this earlier, but each playable character actually has unique characteristics. Mario is the all-arounder and plays pretty similar to every other iteration of the character. Luigi has a crazy jump, which can be helpful, but also a bit tough to manage as he is very, very floaty, even on the ground. Toad is almost the exact opposite of Luigi. He's fast. He runs fast, he picks up objects fast, but he can't jump worth a crap. Princess Toadstool is typically the favorite of the bunch. Her movement speed and jump ability is pretty much in line with Mario, but with the added ability to float, as I mentioned earlier. This character seems like an obvious bid to make the game more accessible to novice players, but in a bit of a twist, she kind of saves the game overall. This is because her float ability allows you to compensate for the game's floaty physics, something that makes Luigi extremely difficult to adapt to. Now, sure, this is essentially playing on easy mode in some ways, but I feel like the overall challenge is still largely present. The platforming requires precision and quick reflexes regardless of the chosen character. Toadstool doesn't mitigate this entirely, and she can only float for so long, so it's not like the P-Wing in Mario 3. But the fact that she does alleviate some of this game's issues makes the game infinitely more fun, in my opinion. There are a number of ways to play Super Mario Bros. 2 today. In this video, you've seen footage of both the NES version as well as the Super NES remake. Both versions are largely the same, aside from the audio-video improvements found on the Super Nintendo version. But there is one key difference that I noticed during this playthrough. The Super NES version feels less floaty. Which is strange because the Super Mario All-Stars remakes tend to actually feel more floaty than their NES counterparts, but in the case of Mario 2, it's a slight improvement. Now, I didn't play through the GBA version of the game for this review, but based on what I did play, the game is interesting. It changes a lot of smaller things in order to make it overall more accessible to new players, and adds a few things to take advantage of the Game Boy Advance in some neat ways. You'll see scaling sprites, hear a bevy of voice samples, and enjoy more detailed and colorful graphics overall, but this all comes at the expense of screen real estate. Everything is crunched quite a bit, and because of this, the camera has to pan back and forth far too much for my liking. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to touch on the original Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2. When it was released in the West, it was included in Super Mario All-Stars as the Lost Levels. Its inclusion certainly had me intrigued as a die-hard Nintendo fan back in the day, but the unfortunate reality is that this is not a great sequel in my opinion. It's essentially more Super Mario Bros. But with drastically harder levels and a few minor curveballs, such as the poison mushrooms that actually hurt you. Now, I don't want to pass judgment on this game too much as I have yet to play through the entire game, but trust me when I say that this one does not stand out from the bunch. Honestly, someone could present these levels as a ROM hack or Super Mario Maker levels, and I don't think anyone would question it. But again, I haven't played this game to completion, so I may be completely off base here. Let me know in the comments. Super Mario Bros. 2 is not the oddball entry in the series, despite popular opinion. Its roots as Doki Doki Panic allowed Nintendo to greatly expand what a Mario game could and should be. Open spaces to explore, a wide variety of enemies, secrets, and power-ups, all of this was propagated here. I won't pretend that Super Mario Bros. 3 didn't do more, or that it didn't do these things better. It mostly did. But Super Mario Bros. 2 established so many key aspects of the franchise that it is downright criminal how much it is overlooked today. Go play it, unless you dislike good games or something. Hey guys, I want to thank you for watching this video. It really does mean a lot. I've had a lot of ups and downs with my various YouTube channels over the years, but I feel like I finally have a formula that I like. I have many more videos in the works, so I hope you'll stick around to see what I have cooking. And if you do plan to do that, please consider sending me a like or subscribing to my channel. Even if I never get to monetize this stuff, it feels good knowing that my content has managed to connect with somebody. Anyways, enough rambling from me. I'll catch you next time.